Okay. Jeff, can you tell us where we're going and what we're doing?
We are just about to turn into the Google campus here in Mountain View and to go meet with their global chief marketing officer, Lorraine Twohill.
I'm back on the road.
And we're going to talk to her about being a marketer, running the marketing organization within an AI company, but also marketing AI products.
If you've been listening to this series, you're probably noticing a similarity to how we started off our Coca-Cola episode. Also, quick aside, if you somehow haven't listened to the first 5 episodes of this series, what are you doing? Go back and listen. Anyways, I thought it was fitting to begin both these episodes the same way because each company's been hit with backlash over AI-related ads.
Yeah, we'll see what she has to say about all kinds of exciting stuff like the new, is it Notebook LM? And maybe that Olympic ad. see what happens.
The Olympic ad I'm referring to was called Dear Sydney and was for Google's AI tool Gemini. And when it aired, it was met with immediate backlash. That's right, another moral panic over an AI ad, just like what happened to Coke's holiday ad. But unlike Coke, this wasn't a backlash for using AI to make the ad. It was for advertising what an AI product could do. Let me back up and break down the ad for you.
My little girl's always been a runner, just like me.
It starts off as your run-of-the-mill, tug-at-the-heartstrings ad about a father and a daughter. The daughter is a runner who looks up to Olympic star Sydney McLaughlin. She looks up to Sydney so much that she wants to write her a letter and wants the dad to help. That dad wants to make things just right. And this is where the ad takes a turn.
So Gemini, help my daughter write a letter telling Sydney how inspiring she is. And be sure to mention that my daughter plans on breaking her world record one day. She says, sorry, not sorry.
Remember when you were a kid and you had that one celebrity hero who could do no wrong? Maybe you loved them so much that you wrote them a heartfelt piece of fan mail, laboring over every word to find just the right way to express how much you looked up to them. Now, Google seemed to be asking, what if AI could do all that tricky emotional work for you? The ad uses the language and imagery of so-called brand authenticity to inspire warm, fuzzy feelings amongst its viewers by emphasizing words on screen like love and inspiration. But this play for authenticity immediately sours when it becomes clear that, at its core, this is a pitch for replacing human-to-human connection with what's essentially a robot mediator. If AI is a tool, as the marketers I talk to insist, then its morality is determined by how companies and individuals choose to use it. Marketers can take advantage of that by highlighting the technology's practical applications rather than its hypothetical personal ones. Inserting AI tech into an emotional context almost always ends up feeling out of touch at best and dystopian at worst. Writing a fan letter sounds practical, but the imperfect emotion, ambition, and creativity of childhood is actually intensely personal. Marketers have a choice: to position AI tools in a hopeful light by framing them as creative helpers rather than usurpers of the creativity itself. I'm Jeff Beer, and this is Brand New World from Fast Company. Today's episode, Don't Be Evil. Okay, so far on this Brand New World journey, we've been focusing on how agencies are using AI tools to help brands in a variety of ways. We've talked to brands about how they're using these tools for themselves, both internally and out to the audiences. But there's another compelling player in this drama, dear listener. And it's the marketer who is not only using AI tools as the others are, but the products being marketed are AI tools themselves. Frankly, as you know from Dear Sydney, it's been a mixed bag so far. And not just for Google. Remember Apple's Crush ad? That was the one from last May that crushed all those creative tools like paintbrushes, a piano, a drum set, all into a single iPad. And it was set to the melancholy tune of Sonny and Cher's All I Ever Need Is You. Lorraine Twohill joined Google in Europe in 2003 and has been the global chief marketing officer since 2009. That means she's overseen the tech giant shift from a product-focused company to an actual iconic global brand, thanks to work like 2010's Parisian Love, which told an emotional love story with just a freaking search bar. So Google is no stranger to creating emotional stories with and through its product marketing. Obviously, there's a ton to talk with Lorraine about how her and her team are working with AI. But I wanted to start at the beginning.
For the marketing organization and for you, like when did the experimentation and the integration of AI start, and how did it start for you guys?
We've been on that journey for a little while, but it would have been concentrated in, for example, our media team, our media lab. So we've been using AI for years to optimize our media campaigns, obviously using the Google ad stack and Google's ad tools like PMax and Demand Gen. And so that's been very comfort zone for us.
Yeah.
And in the last few years, we've already been creative using AI to run through those campaigns. Again, though, in that dedicated team. I think the big change for us in the last year has been almost like the democratization of access to AI through these new tools so that the whole team, not just one dedicated team within the team, can actually start to have some fun and play. And so that's really the journey we've been on, has been moving just from the specialists actually out to everybody and looking at much more of the marketing use cases in the journey versus just say media optimization. And so thinking about generating insights and ideas, thinking about creative and production, that's a big focus area for us. Those are productivity across the team. So there are probably three big buckets beyond media and measurement where we're actually leading in a lot now across the team. We've been testing a lot of first-party and third-party tools, working with all of our agencies and partners who are building tools in this space. We found some great tools we love. We've run some fantastic pilots and experiments. We're past that phase now.
Yeah, okay.
And we're really into, picking which tools we're going to deploy, working out which ones we want to build internally because of reasons like data access, working out some of the issues you hit along the way, like if your information your agency already has that they can unlock and use for you. For example, our media agency has our campaign effectiveness. That's actually a huge asset.
Yeah.
But our data warehouse internally, our DAM where we have all of our creative is in-house. And so just working out all those logistics too to really make this work better for everybody.
Okay, so Google is not only building AI tools, but as a marketing organization, it's using and testing out third-party tools for various types of efficiency. Remember the Brandtech group from episode 2? Lorraine explains to me the third-party tools they are using, including Brandtech Group's Crown Jewel.
Pencil Pro is one, Jellyfish, Brandtech, Pencil Pro, and it's a great tool. We're using it from the US to Europe to India to Japan to localize, to create AI digital creative, social creative from scratch, and to reformat for many, many different campaigns. Monks Flow from MediaMonks is another great tool. And again, we're using that in many different countries for big global campaigns to get stuff into many languages fast and to do transcreation, localization at speed. They're extremely good at that. And then WPP Open, they're our media agency. So they have years and years of all of our most effective creative. So what they're building with WPP Open is incredibly interesting for us because we can actually generate new creative based on the most effective creative we've ever run, train it on the creative we're most proud of and would most want to train a tool on because they have it all. They're also building another tool called Brand Brain. Yeah.
It's a good name.
a little worrying, the name, but what it does and what is interesting is one of the few I've seen that focuses on brand standards.
Okay.
And as you deploy these tools and as you create AI-generated work, how do you keep the quality high? How do you ensure everything meets your brand standards? So building an actual tool that's trained on your brand standards. In fact, a demo they showed me asked it to produce, a list of brand guidelines for Google based on our best work. And I read the list and I was like, wow, I couldn't have written that myself. It was so good.
Yeah.
It was so it nailed it. And so, that opportunity, the potential for actually AI itself to regulate all the AI work by holding it all to our brand standards is wild to me.
Yeah.
So one AI tool will hold the other AI tool to our brand standards. And so that's all happening. And that's very, very exciting. And some of these are ready to deploy now. And we can use them day to day. And some are still big vision ideas, but they're coming fast. But those are the ones that we're most using today. In-house, of course, as you would expect, we use a lot of our own tools like Gemini, Notebook.LM, which you saw earlier, and Workspace, where you have Help Me Write. So, the teams can produce documents much faster, can synthesize and summarize much faster.
Not to cut Lorraine off mid-thought here, but I wanted to stop and talk about the Google AI tools she mentioned, specifically Notebook.LM. Notebook.LM is one of Google's newest tools for everyday people. It's basically an online research assistant with features common for AI software tools like document summarization. It's kind of like a walled garden LLM, where you provide the information that it calls from. It went viral last fall because of its audio feature that allows you to turn its answers into a very NPR-sounding podcast format with incredibly lifelike sounding hosts. In December, it dropped a new interactive mode update that lets you actually jump into the audio podcast where the two AI-generated hosts are chatting and ask your own questions or get your own comments heard. I got a walkthrough by award-winning author and writer Steven Johnson, seriously, go read the Ghost Map, who also happens to be the editorial director at Google Labs.
So, the whole principle is, from the beginning of the project, is like that it's about not just having an open-ended conversation with an AI model, thus grounding the model in the information that you bring to your project, what you're working on, the research you're doing, personal journals, your company documents, the interviews you've done for a story, and you create a notebook and you upload sources, which is what we call them. And at that point, the model is everything you ask it to do, every question you ask it is grounded in those documents.
Okay, so here's where you upload any kind of information: Google Docs, YouTube videos, PDF files.
So everything in Notebook is organized around like you provide sources, and then we will do all this AI magic with those sources.
Johnson walked me through a use case around creating a school lesson plan around the views of famed urban studies theorist and legend Jane Jacobs on sidewalks. He added Google Docs with excerpts from Jacobs' books, PDF copies of magazine interviews, as well as YouTube interviews with her. He also uploaded a copy of a school board curriculum and a photo of a napkin note he made on a proposed class structure. Within a few questions, Notebook.LM had devised an entire lesson plan around Jacobs' views on sidewalks, footnoting everything along the way. I was blown away.
By the way, because my background is as a writer and a journalist, it's an amazing tool for journalism.
Yeah, I'm already I've been looking at it from afar and just thinking about it the last few days leading up to our meeting here and talking to Lorraine. But it already looks like, oh my god, I'm already writing down okay, I gotta upload all the different things I'm gonna upload to. Yeah.
What fascinates me about Google as a brand, as it applies to our conversation around AI, is that this is a brand not only figuring out how to utilize the technology as a marketing organization, but also trying to navigate how to market its own AI tools to the masses. As I said, we've seen Apple roll out ads with varying levels of backlash for its AI assistant. Even OpenAI had a Super Bowl ad, which we'll revisit next episode. So I wanted to ask Lorraine about how they approach not just using AI in their marketing, but actually marketing Google's AI products.
How have you guys thought as marketers around pitching it to, because it's so useful to so many different people and so many different stakeholders? How have you guys thought about that?
It was very early days for Notebook.LM, and we're excited by how viral it's gone and how viral audio overviews are gone. We're very, very excited about that. And so we definitely want to spend more time marketing it and bringing it to more people, more audiences as the team rolls it out. So you'll definitely see more for us on that. What's interesting for us is how we think about how do we use AI to promote AI products.
Oh, yeah,
so
exactly.
we're almost full circle, full circle.
Yeah.
So that's something, but there's probably three big focus areas for me right now in terms of marketing AI products. One is search itself. Mm-hmm. We've launched AI overviews, circle to search, lens, visual search is very exciting for us. We did a very big campaign with Samsung earlier in the year for Circle to Search. I was really proud to see them as a partner really embrace one of our new exciting search features, and they did a beautiful job. So, focusing on search and helping search feel relevant and fresh, especially to younger users, is really important for us as we bring out AI features into arguably our most important product. The next big bucket for me is Gemini itself, Gemini the app, which we launched earlier this year. And we spoke about this last time we were together, and that's where we've been having fun with prompt song and getting folks to start to use Gemini and learn how helpful these tools can be in the day-to-day. And then the third big bucket for us is it all comes together on the phone. So we had our Made by Google event in August where we announced Pixel 9, Pixel 9 Fold, Pixel 9 Pro. And that's really the first truly AI phone in the world where the AI goodness has already shipped and is available today. And that's where Gemini on Pixel, all the goodness that Google is building all comes together. And so it's my job to tell people about that, get them excited about that, help them understand what that actually means.
But of course, with a technology that is not only new, but so revolutionary that we struggle with how we want to use it in the first place, there will be missteps. There was already built-in fear and trepidation seeped into culture before Google dropped its Dear Sydney spot. So I asked Lorraine about it and what they learned from the reaction.
Me personally seeing it, I could see what people were talking about, but at the same time, it didn't seem like it really warranted the reaction it got. I feel like people made the same argument about the Apple Crush ad where it was like, wow, that was I think it just taps into some of the fears generally around AI. And that's an interesting thing around marketing products based on AI because there's so much helpfulness. I mean, my excitement sitting in that room getting walked through Notebook LM, there's something there that's so amazing. And at the same time, there are worries and fears out in the world and people are able to voice that. What was that experience like and sort of what were the lessons that you got from that?
Well, we definitely got overexcited.
Yeah.
I mean, I think for us, look, there's a lot of hype around AI and we want to really focus on genuinely helpful examples and helpful AI. And I think the lesson for us is just to keep reminding ourselves of that and to lean into genuinely helpful use cases, knowing that there's a spectrum out there of people some of whom are very, very ready for these tools and find them very useful and find great joy in using them, and others who, are very worried and uncomfortable and concerned. And we have to solve for everybody, and that's our job. And so just making sure that we get that right. In that particular case with Dear Sydney, I think had Gemini given tips on how to write a great letter versus given a draft of the letter, I think we would have probably had very, very few issues, or less issues at least. And so it's, again, just being smart tonally and understanding how to help meet the moment with people and be a bit more relatable and just really putting yourself in the shoes of the people who are going to actually watch this and how they might react. And, good moment for all of us, really. We really saw it as a learning moment to really remember the human part of all of this journey at the end of the day. And at the end of the day, these are just tools that help us as humans, help humanity through our day. They're nothing more than that. And to the we should always remember that and make sure that we're genuinely being helpful and additive to a person's day as we interrupt their day to talk about these tools.
Yeah. It's funny you say like just that one difference, how thin the margins are, or of nuance. Because I felt the same way about, again, that we had this conversation in the office about the Apple ad where it was like, if it was played in reverse,
someone did that.
Yeah, it would. It's actually it shows the same thing, really, like what they said, the tool is in the tool, but it's like the opening instead of the closing is a totally different thing.
We're going to take a quick break, but when we return, I'm going to check back in with Nilesh Ashra to talk more about his own conversations as a consultant on AI strategy with CMOs and brands. Okay, we're back. And as I said back in episode 2, I like to bounce stuff off Nilesh because his experience sits at the meeting point between breakthrough technology, brands, and creative marketing.
I'm hearing a lot of CMOs try and figure out where they aim their experimentation and adoption of this first. And then the two extremes there are like internally, should we start to use this computational intelligence alongside a creative intelligence that marketing already is supposed to represent? And then on the other side of the spectrum is like, X brand made an ad for 4.2 cents. Should we do that?
Well, that's funny because I mean, that is definitely one of the questions I talked with Lorraine about was, how are you thinking about these tools within your organization?
your point around expertise is interesting because it's kind of like, not only am I asking myself what my priorities should be, but I'm still asking myself, like, who should I even be talking to about this? That's what that sounds like.
Yeah. Okay. So I think what good looks like here is obviously just like I'm quite opinionated about that. So here's my opinion. And this is the kind of the path that I'm taking the clients that I work with down, which sort of attempts to do a very quick judo move, a judo reverse on what I think is the mainstream narrative. So like if you look in most of the trade press, Fast Company in this podcast excluded, in the creative industry, I think there's way much of an overemphasis on execution, like the economics of executing the creation of content. And if you think about like the creative process, I think there's ostensibly for any brand at large or an individual, I think the creativity has to solve two problems. The first problem is an imagination problem, and then you have an execution problem. And I think way too much of the emphasis of what GenAI could mean is in execution.
So how to use it to unlock good ideas instead of, or maybe with heavier emphasis on that, than how quickly can we get something done?
Exactly. Like imagine for the next 10 years and you led a brand, you could only use GenAI in one of two areas, either in strategic thought and creative thought across your team, or in video and photographic content generation. I think there's 100x ROI to aiming it at creative and strategic thought.
I mean, benefit of the doubt, I'm giving benefit of the doubt here, but like the efficiency, those two choices you were given, right?
Yeah.
The production, the video, photo, that's the low hanging fruit, and that's the easy one to make. That's kind of an easy decision to make, and it's not easy, but like it's the most obvious use.
Yeah.
It's the most obvious and immediate implementation. Whereas on the imagination side and creative thinking side, that's like not only is it complicated to actually do, I mean, like getting the models to do these things,
yes,
but also just like, even if we can get it to do that, how are we using it? Like, it's kind of like you have to clean your bedroom, and it's like the easiest thing to do. The first thing is just like, I'm just going to make the bed. That's the easiest thing. But that's not the most important thing at all. You've got like food on the floor.
100%.
You know what I mean? You got to like figure out the easy thing first. But do you think that's why they're going there first?
I think so, yeah. And I think part of it is the bias that like performance marketing, like the lingering influence of performance marketing as a model still has, which is like, hey, if we can just like make enough, if 10,000 variants wasn't enough, if we made 1 billion variants, somehow finally we'll compete with X brand. And I think if you just put AI aside even, I think you can just sort of reflect on, what do you actually believe? Well, like, what do you actually believe is the most important thing about making an impact in culture and using that as a growth strategy? Like, do you believe it is operational mechanics of your marketing digital infrastructure? Or do you believe it's just waking up at 2 a.m. and being like, holy crap, what if a water brand was just like heavy metal? Like the Liquid Death didn't have they didn't solve the problem of making enough variants of some performance marketing infrastructure. They essentially were the first ones to observe that the way that water talked to culture hadn't changed in like 5 decades. That's so much harder, Jeff. We don't honor enough how much bravery and judgment and brilliance it takes to do that, because it gets compressed into the, like, murder your thirst, and you're like, oh wow, and then you just take it for granted that brand exists. But do you know how crazy that would have sounded like a year before that ever launched? Or to go raise money for something like that, you'd be insane. Like, we're gonna compete with Fiji water with murder your thirst. But those are the things that I think in my career, I'm obsessed with them, because I feel like it's the last great magic trick left in business, which is to create a massive defensible moat using an idea.
Right. Well, and that is definitely as more and more products, things become, and I mean, I'm sure AI is going to contribute to this, commoditized.
It is.
The only differentiation in so many ways, I mean, product quality notwithstanding, is brand. Is like, okay, how do you use that? Here's the thing, when talking about like talking about content and culture to make yourself relevant to an audience, I think marketers using AI for ads is kind of like the basic, logical, like what else are they going to do? This is what they do. That's all they do. They crank out. That's what they crank out.
Oh, yeah.
So for people not in the industry, like what are we talking about? What is your ideal use case then? Like what for the, and what, how will we see the reflection of that on the other side?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
100%. And I think I appreciate my unique role on this podcast of kind of understanding a lot of the foundational technology and then laddering it up to what it might mean. So the foundational technology of large language models produces tokens of text. And so we're producing these tokens of text. We can produce scripts, diffusion models can create images, and yeah, our industry has gone like perfect. In the comfort blanket, they're like, I know these things.
Right.
You know, good. It can create a creative brief. It can create, no one's questioning like, hey, is the creative brief helping anyone right now? It can take our marketing calendar and figure out how it maps to audience demographics. Again, no one's asking themselves like, does a millennial mean anything anymore? Has that helped anyone in a decade market anything actually? So it's like there's this comfort blanket thing going on. Large language models can produce strings of text that can describe almost anything, Jeff. So here's one example. If you haven't seen by now, Notebook LM's ability to create podcasts.
We talked to Stephen Johnson gave me a walkthrough for this podcast. It's great.
Wonderful. And again, when you're reviewing stuff like that, try and have two parts of you. Like one is, you know, you can be critical about the quality of the podcast. You can have emotional reactions to how much you love podcasting, and that's all fair. Be ruthlessly objective though and say, whoa, the leap from creating like bullet point lists in kind of like an annoying high IQ Stanford intern ChatGPT output to a podcast. Well, if you think about that as like an evolutionary leap, what's the next species that's about to arrive? Like that's the thing to think through. And so where that might be going, you know, there's software engineers right now every day using large language models to produce code. Mm-hmm. Now, a lot of those are kind of product software engineers working at some of probably our favorite digital app services, Uber, whatever, and they're building features using apps. Well, I know it sounds kind of outlandish, but I really think that web software could have a comeback. You know, like, do you remember the microsite era?
Yes.
Where everything kind of felt very cool and bespoke. And it was like every time a brand did something, it was like an interactive album cover of sorts, you know? Like,
our podcast guest, Jason Zada's Elf Yourself back in the day.
Exactly. And so like, I might just being overly nostalgic, but today a marketer or like one creative and one sort of business marketing strategy person, wherever in the organization they sit, could just sit together and instead of asking for the output in a brief, which is a made-up artifact from like 80 years ago in some agency none of us have ever worked at, instead of asking for that artifact, you can just skip straight to like, make me a small interactive microsite that uses my finger gestures to educate me about the mission of our company. And it will. You can just generate code. I'm not saying that like that should be on every marketer's roadmap today of having your marketers do that, but as a like art of possible, I really think it's important that we start recognizing that a lot of the things that we feel like the economics were not good anymore, you know, the economics for having a digital agency bang you out like a sick sizzle microsite for every single campaign launch. Yeah, like around 10 or 12 years ago, unfortunately, social media kind of killed that idea. Jeff, like there's a lot of those things that I think we could start to revisit to help marketing organizations make things that don't just sit in a rectangle box made of frames of video. There is no technology limitation that this can just create ad-like objects. That's a industrial limitation, not a technology limitation.
Like all leaders, CMOs talk to each other and learn from each other. So I wanted to know from Lorraine about what those conversations are like right now, as it feels like the pace of both technological development and culture is faster than ever before.
What is the conversation around AI among your fellow CMOs right now? How would you characterize those conversations?
Well, I love chatting with my fellow CMOs.
Okay.
It was recently had our Zeitgeist event where we had many of us together, and this was, of course, the topic at lunch. There were, I think, 24 of us sat together. And this is definitely the topic that we're all having and the conversation we're having. As a CMO, it doesn't matter really where you're a CMO, you're focused on impact at scale, and you want to really drive, impact for your company, help the business grow. And so that's really the starting point to what extent can these tools help you with your goals?
Yeah.
That's really the starting point. Can these tools help us achieve our goals, and how can these tools help us achieve our goals better, right? And actually deliver more impact for the company. We get into conversations very fast around, obviously, creativity and productivity, production, as a real pragmatic area where a lot of the early wins are, which is speed to market, speed to localization. There's often this sort of 6-8 week window between having a media plan and shipping because you've got to get all the assets done. That's a cost and time saving opportunity. So that's definitely a big focus. First party versus third party. Are we building these tools ourselves? Are we buying these tools, licensing these tools? So a lot of CMOs are thinking about first party strategies versus third party strategies. What does an org structure look like in the future? What kind of talent do we need in our team? Do we need prompt engineers?
Yeah.
That's kind of a conversation. And then how do we scale our team members to use these new tools and make them feel comfortable? So what even is the makeup of our teams in the future?
Yeah.
Those are all kind of the conversations that people are having out there. And there are most people I've spoken to are already testing their way in. They're trying tools. They're partnering with their agencies and really starting to think seriously about how this will change how they work.
Is it a bit, I'm from the outside because I get pitched. I can't believe how many, the difference between, speaking of 12 months ago, how many now AI agencies there are, how many these tools. How do you, obviously you have a team, and talking to fellow CMOs, one thing what you were talking about just now brought to mind was there's so much to parse and be is this actually useful? Is this actually effective? And I'm sure that's always the case for all the different kinds of tools that people are pitching to marketers to make their work better. But the AI aspect of it is certainly something that adds a level of complexity that feels new. What's that like? Because I even as a journalist looking at it, I'm I don't know, is this real? Is this so how do you guys think about this sudden proliferation of the AI kind of industry around it in the marketing sphere?
It's a very interesting question because we're not new to this in the marketing industry in terms of tools coming at us. Strong foundations help. So we've all had to go through, those of us who've grown up in the industry, we've all had to go through steep learning curves before. Many of us have built internal MarTech teams as a result because of previous waves of tools that were important for us to learn and adapt. And so strong foundations really helps. Dedicated teams internally who understand this stuff, understand marketing technologies really helps. It makes it easier to start to deploy AI tools and look at them. I think the big change this time is that in the past, many of the tools that we use in marketing are used by specialist teams. So even though you were deploying them to a subset of your team, maybe your media measurement teams, et cetera. You didn't have to have everybody in the team have access, be trained on them, feel comfortable using them, and produce great work out of them with no risk.
Yeah.
This is different in that you are deploying these teams to just everybody in the team. And you want everybody in the team to be able to use some of these tools. In that respect, it feels very different.
Like Lorraine mentioned, incorporating new tech into a marketing department isn't new, but the amount of team members that are affected is. There are so many tools out there, especially for productivity. So identifying which ones make the most sense is daunting. But there is also the option for a company like Google to build your own tools.
I think the last time we talked, you mentioned, speaking of ideas in the past where it wouldn't have been possible to kind of do in the time frame that it would have been relevant or culturally relevant or whatever. And I think you were talking about how the sort of metaphorical drawer where it was all the ideas that were impossible are kind of in this drawer. Do you guys ever think about dipping back into that drawer and get back at it?
That's exactly it. We ran this Dragon's Den competition across the team. One of the winning ideas was exactly this. I thought it was so clever. It was, let's create a tool called Idea Generator.
Okay.
And let's load in all the ideas we've had over the years that we could never do, all those pitches and ideas we've had. And, in any creative process, there's probably 100 ideas of which you ship a few. And all the rest, there's a lot of rude goodness there. So if you could actually just put it all into a tool and have it generate ideas all the time, well, that would be amazing. You'd always have new, fresh ideas, but they're born of where you've come from in the past.
Yeah.
Right?
Actually, I wanted to touch on that, the Dragon's Den, because you had an AI tools version of that. I think you said there was, I have my notes from Cannes where it was 137 different teams from around the world.
Last year was 125 teams.
Okay.
This year is 137.
Okay.
They're thereabouts.
In terms of the AI tools version of this, maybe you could tell us what ideas or stood out most or the common threads between what all those teams were kind of coming up with.
Well, just so I explain what Dragon's Den is first, it's a UK show. It's the UK equivalent of Shark Tank. It's been a big part of our team since 2008. The idea is anyone in the team, no matter what your day job is, no matter what you work on, can submit an idea to whatever the theme we picked that year is. And it allows folks who are in different teams to actually send in ideas for other teams that they don't work on day to day. Last year, meeting the moment, we chose come up with a tool that would help our team do better work using AI. And we had 125 teams enter from all across the world, incredible ideas. And a lot of the ideas, were in the space of productivity because, remember, these are more junior team members, and they're the ones stuck with reformatting videos for every single platform, stuck with reformatting every retail designs for every single 50,000 stores we're in with our hardware products. So a lot of the ideas were things like Ad Formatter, a tool that helps us reformat all our assets for every single platform. Hugely helpful. That's one we're doing. Another one was a trends and insights generator. So we have a lot of access to research and trends and insights, internally, but also all the third-party, research we do. We work with many different research companies, putting all that in and just being able to simply ask for, give me the latest trends for Gen Z, or give me the latest insights on XYZ. So making it much easier to access all the research we have. So we're doing that. And that's a nice win. We have another tool called Octolift that helps you optimize your media. That was another one. Another one is we have a lot of partners. Our Google Cloud Marketing team, for example, work with a huge array of global partners. They have to put their latest product materials into the branded campaigns for every single partner. And that's build a simple tool that takes the next set of assets and puts it into the branded look and feel of every single partner and ship, right? Again, a lot of this is work that is the day job of many folks in my team, and they would love to put their brains on more exciting work.
Yeah.
And we never get to all the things we want to do. There's so much opportunity. And so if we can automate or speed up some of these processes and some of this work, we can free up their time to work on higher order things, which is a win for all of us. And so it wasn't a surprise to me that a lot of the ideas coming back were really in this space of helping them be more productive, helping the team move faster, helping us be more productive, getting less exciting work be a bit more automated so that they could actually work on something else.
What I'm hearing is that the best application for AI tools within a marketing organization is to take over all the boring stuff in order to let the human creativity cook faster and more often. This is, of course, incredibly consistent with what we heard from David Droga back in episode 1 and Jason Zada in episode 2. Now, I wanted to know from Lorraine how she plans to get there.
What are you kind of seeing as the actions today that you feel are setting the right course for you guys going, 6-12 months from now?
I think it's all of us, including me, getting comfortable using new tools every day. I think it's being open-minded, being in this culture experimentation we spoke about earlier, but it's all of us just trying this stuff, just trying it out, learning, and getting used to it. I think that's really important. I think having this culture where everyone feels like they can experiment and try these tools and use these things and create things, I think that really helps you get there. But ultimately, my dream is that we get to a point where we can have an idea in the morning and ship in the afternoon. That's the dream. For all of the innovation in marketing and advertising, and for all of the hundreds of tools that have been built and the many, many vendors who provide tools, it is still a highly manual process that involves an awful lot of people, and it's gotten even harder. There's just a lot of things in the way. It takes time to get to market. It takes time to get to many countries. And if you want to move at the speed of the consumer, the speed of culture, to use that expression, you want to be able to have an idea in the morning and ship in the afternoon. And that is still very hard today. So that's the goal I'm kind of setting, is like, how can we get to that point where we can quickly have an idea, make something, ship and run?
Yeah.
And I think we'll get there. And that's what I want to get to.
If that's the ideal marketers should be aiming for, moving at the speed of consumers and culture, when it comes to AI products, there will be missteps. There has to be. As I've said before, it's a natural byproduct of experimentation. Actually, Google itself perfectly illustrated the two sides of this coin on what is widely considered the biggest day in advertising every year. For the Super Bowl, the company executed 2 different ad strategies. The first was 51 different regional ads to promote small businesses from those areas that use Gemini tools for things like writing website copy, data analysis, and organizing emails. But pretty quickly, people spotted some irregularities. An ad for Wisconsin Cheese Mart claimed there's more cows in Wisconsin than people. There aren't. It claimed that Gouda accounts for 50 to 60% of the world's cheese consumption. It doesn't. Then it was accused of depicting Gemini writing website copy that already existed. Needless to say, this wasn't the message Google intended to convey. But then there was its national Super Bowl spot called Dream Job. Here we see a man running through his job interview practice with Gemini, and in the process, revealing his lovely relationship with his daughter. It was the perfect mix of tech product demo and emotional story gold that Google has struck before, with ads like the 2009 spot Parisian Love and Dear Sophie in 2011. Moving at the speed of culture also requires a keen awareness of how culture views the growth of a new and revolutionary technology. This isn't chips and beer or insurance. It's pretty damn complicated, and it's understandably got people running hot. Marketers like Lorraine and her team at Google are working a delicate balancing act in how they utilize and market these tools, all while positioning Gemini as the heir apparent to the almighty search. No pressure. Speaking of balancing acts, we spent a lot of time in this series examining how brands and those who work with them are navigating AI. Next episode, I'll be talking to OpenAI's Chief Marketing Officer, Kate Rausch, about how what may be the planet's most famous AI company is trying to forge itself into a truly iconic brand. See you next time.
Brand New World is an MIC podcast from Fast Company. Our producers are Yaz Gagne, Grace Snelling, Blake Odom, and Avery Miles. Mix and sound design by Nicholas Torres. Our executive producer and editor is Josh Christensen. Be sure to subscribe to Brand New World on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. You can also hear all episodes in the Most Innovative Companies podcast feed. If you like this podcast, leave us a rating and review on your podcast app of choice, or let us know in the comments of Fast Company's social media. We're basically on every app you can think of. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you next week.